Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Shoot from the Hoop. My name is Jeff Jensen. I'm the host for the podcast, and the purpose of the podcast is to talk about all things FITASC and sporting clays. I am joined by my good friend and truly an ambassador of the sport, Curt Halbakken. Curt, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. I mean, we went out for dinner the other night. We only live a mile from each other now. Now we both escaped the cold, and we're in Arizona.
Yes. So
I've got a whole host of questions and topics we can talk about, but I thought I'd kick it off with a couple of stories, Curt. The first one, and this kind of highlights some of the podcast, it's relationships and shooting with your buddies. I was thinking about a couple of experiences we've had, and I couldn't help but think about 10 years ago, we were shooting in New Jersey at M&M. It was a big FITASC event, and you and me, Randy Travalier and Brian Duquesne shot for 4 straight hours in a torrential downpour.
Sheets of rain.
You couldn't even see some of the targets. It was unbelievable.
No, I remember. Not only was it raining, but it was cold and windy also. Very cold.
It was. And I everything in my wallet was even soaked. I mean, we had rain gear and stuff, but that was amazing. And the second one, we'll touch back on these a little bit, but the second one, Curt, and I remember this like it was yesterday. It was 2018. We were all over in France shooting in the World FITASC Championships, and I was with my son Joe. And on our way to the course, we looked at the scores, and I wasn't in a position to win anything, but I was curious always, who's shooting well. And Joey said, "Oh my gosh, Dad, Curt's right there. He's got a shot at the podium." And I remember thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is fabulous!" And I know how hard you'd been training, and you'd been on Team USA. And I'll never forget at the end of the day, walking down that one road by the tents, and we saw you, and we're like, "How'd it go?" And indeed, you made a podium. You won a bronze medal. So
I did. Yes. Thank you.
That was phenomenal. But you also told me you never looked at the scores.
I made a commitment, and that's a wrestling match with each shooter, whether or not they look at the scoreboard or whether they don't. And I've done both. I don't know that there's one that works better, but for that tournament, for some reason, I made a commitment. I wasn't going to look at the scoreboard. So I never looked at it until I'd shot my last rotation. And then I went in and had a sandwich and a bottle of Coke with my wife, Karen. And I just sat there and went, wow. I was a little shocked, but I knew I had shot well.
That's interesting because, yeah, you kind of do know when you shoot well. But that had been quite a journey for you. I mean, you shot your first nationals back in like 1990 or something, didn't you? I mean, you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, I think it was in probably the latter 90s, early 2000s to shoot the nationals. I shot the U.S. Open and such, but really, originally it got in the way of my rough grouse hunting in the fall, the nationals. So I kind of always wrestled with what to do, and then they changed the date, so it was a lot easier to do both.
Well, there you go. So let me ask you this, Curt. I can't remember how many times you've been on Team USA. Do you know off the top of your head?
Total teams is 6 as of late. Yeah.
So when in your shooting career did you think to yourself, "Hey, I'm gonna start shooting these qualifying events and seeing if I can make the national team"?
I think it was in like 2010. And you mentioned Randy Travalier's name earlier. I said, "How do I get better?" And he said simply, "You need to travel around and increase your library of targets." Very famous comment to me. And what he was saying is there's a lot of great shooters that stay in a couple of states, the contingent to where they live. And yet when you travel around to other states, down to Florida, Texas, New Jersey, at M&M, all of a sudden you find that the targets and the location and the terrain, it's all unique. And until you do all that, when you get to a new terrain and stuff, it was always a challenge for me. And I know others have said the same thing. So that helped me a lot. And I think it was about 2010, 11, and I made the team.
And back then, were you shooting? Were they World Cup events in the United States as qualifiers and regionals?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And is it similar to now, where you take your top 4 scores and then they scale them? And
Correct.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. So, what was, when you were traveling, what did you find to be the biggest challenge in terms of new terrain, new targets, new target setters, or is it kind of all of the above?
Well, if I'd never been to the club before, that was always a new element. And we'll probably some other time talk about Henry Hopking, but he was the one that said, if you've never been to the club, see if you can get a hold of the map of the club. And if you've been at the club before, you should be reviewing the things that you remember about that club before you ever get there again. And so that always helped me, because it was always that preparation of the club. And I'd talk to people and they'd say, oh, yeah, that's a great club. And it was always fun to see it for the first time.
Right. Oh, no doubt. And you and I have talked about this. In fact, you introduced me to Henry. Henry's processes in the mental game have helped me in the past. And I know they helped you when get on the podium at the World Championships.
Correct. I spent about little over 3 years with him, all year long. And everybody's different, but one of the phrases he told me was, you have to be indulgent to your own needs. Don't worry about anything else. And so that always stuck in my head. And the second thing was, he says, you've never really been on the podium. And I said, nope. And he said, do you see yourself standing on the podium? And we were sitting at the Nationals, that table. And I didn't answer him. He goes, well, that pretty much answered my question. And he said, if you want to be on the podium, you have to see yourself on the podium. So I really remember that. And it was that next World FITASC, that next following July in France. And I spent the rest of the time from the day I had that conversation with him until I got there, always thought about it. So
you of seeing yourself on the podium, but it's one thing to think you're on the podium, seeing yourself. It's another thing to actually prepare to be there, right?
Right, and the preparation. I think I had a lot of help in training and such, and I think that's part of seeing yourself. When you're training, you're training with a purpose to be there. I think some of the greatest shooters do that extremely well.
Is that innate or learned?
I'm not sure. I think it might be dependent on individuals. I mean, some people that have played a lot of sports, been successful in business, it's probably more there for them already. Others have to probably hone it up a little bit more.
That makes perfect sense to me. So when I was working with Henry, he had me scoring myself on whether I did the very important 3 things: make a plan, go into the stand and relax, and then rev up your energy to see the target and go after it. And he would have me score myself based on whether or not I just did those 3 things that were all under my control.
Breaking the bird was secondary. In other words, right? I mean, remember, he wanted to know how well you executed those 3 things.
Yes. In fact, I'd have to call him and tell him what I scored.
Right.
Executing those 3 things. He didn't even care about my score. He cared, but not as much as the process.
He was very instrumental in several people's improvement of their mental game and preparation and such. I'm glad that I got to work with him.
That's incredible. So let me ask you this, Curt. You shot a lot of trap when you were younger, and then you delved into sporting clays. Who helped you in terms of learning how to break these targets? I mean, they've evolved obviously over the years, but did you have coaches, or did you have your buddies, or how'd that play out?
Well, I did shoot trap a lot when I was young, but when I graduated from high school, I took almost 14 years before I ever shot another clay target.
Wow.
Um, I did a lot of rough grouse hunting and bird hunting, and I think it was Will Fennell asked me, "Where did you learn to shoot?" And he says, "Who have you had lessons with before me?" And I said, "Nobody." And he said, "Hmm." I said, "Just hunting." And so I think that's why I like FITASC so much because it's much more geared for hunting situations. You know, mounting your gun, putting an eye on the bird, and such. Whereas the repetitiveness of FITASC is very low.
Absolutely. Compared to 4 pairs of the same thing.
Right. And hats off to all the people that shoot all the other disciplines well because they're all different.
Different qualities to succeed at the highest levels.
Correct.
Which is, this is a sidebar topic, but that's why when you look at Derek Mine, for example, he's unbelievable. He's won FITASC nationals. Now he's Olympic trap shooter.
Yes. And he's won national skeet championship, I believe.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's a lot of skill sets.
He is a very skilled shooter. Very skilled.
So what I've learned shooting with you over the years is that if there's a trap target, it's dead when you call pull. And that you think that comes from the bird hunting, huh?
I think that and shooting trap when I was so young, I shot a lot. I'd shoot doubles and handicap and 16 yard. And I guess it's just something that the muscle memory just stayed there.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
I'm sure that shooting birds behind a pointing dog, you get a lot of straightaways and quarterings and going, so yes, probably hunting helped.
I believe that. Shifting gears just a tinge, you went through a phase, not a phase, but a time period probably even after France, when you hit the podium, where you were just shooting lights out. I mean, you and I would go down to Tucson and train, and we'd shoot 8 parkours on FITASC, and you'd miss like 2 targets. What do you attribute that to? I mean, that was pretty phenomenal. I mean, that was like, what was that, 2020-ish maybe?
Well, yeah, because we went to the World FITASC in Providence, in Mississippi.
Where you won a silver medal.
Right. And I think I'm going to use Bill McGuire's conversation I had with him prior to that. Maybe this will help. I asked Bill because he'd go to a tournament and he would shoot a 96, 97, 98. I mean, continually. He was feared for about 2-3 years there. And he said, when you get used to shooting those scores, that's what you shoot. And that's why you don't want to shoot too many like 80, 81, 82s, because that's what you get used to shooting, is how he presented it to me. And I really believe there's a lot to that.
And one of those self-image things.
Correct. Yeah. But he, to me, I was having fun. After the World FITASC, I had a lot of fun. And I really attribute a lot of those scores to that I was having fun. And I don't think people shoot well when they don't have fun. At least I don't.
You mean like putting too much pressure on themselves?
You have to enjoy that pressure. It's going to be there, right?
Right.
But I think it has to be fun. If it is work or burdensome for whatever reasons, I just don't think you perform at your top game.
Kind of like anything in life, though, if you think about it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, look at, I worked, as you know, at Shield Sports for years. And when somebody wasn't at the top of their game, it was more often than not something that was in their personal life. And I think we're all like that for the most part.
Yeah.
When everything's clicking along outside of work and outside of shooting sporting clays, you go to the tournament and things just seem to flow for you.
Well said. So did your career with Shields and mentors in business have an impact on your shooting, you think?
Yes, from this standpoint, I think in every category, you need to have people that are your mentors and people that you can count on that are going to be there to support you, cheer you on, tell you when you're not being so smart and you're making a mistake. And that trust, that bond just keeps growing. And I certainly had that in my work, and I certainly had that in sporting clays.
Yeah, it's a great community.
I heard not too long ago, shooting is like a tribe. You belong to this large tribe, and you think about it. Sporting clays is a large group of people. When you have over 2,000 people at a national championship, there's something going on there that it's pretty fun to see.
It is fun to see. And funny story, and you and I have talked about this in the past. When we travel and you go to state tournaments, you go to regionals, you go to world events, you see the same people every month. And I always joke that I see my buddies when I'm traveling to shooting events more than I see my next door neighbors.
Right.
And it's true.
Right. You and I both know David Cole very well. He's a very accomplished shooter. And I just talked to him this morning. I just said, how's your New Year go? And he goes, great. And he's got a couple grandkids now, and and a great grandchild. So he's doing really well. He likes to talk about that stuff. But he's somebody that I always look forward to at least saying hi. Because as you know, when you're at a big tournament, you have all these plans to see everyone. Sometimes seeing them is meeting each other in a golf cart and waving.
Right.
And it's gotten that large. You just don't have that time to see everybody.
Speaking of David, I remember, I think it was in Hungary one year. You know how that we always get in those little minivans and they take you to the parkours and then you get out. He and I were piling in at the same time, and he had just finished his last parkour and he won a gold medal in,
yes, he did.
I think it was senior vet, right? Or veteran, they would call it.
Might have been super vet at the time. Well, they're named differently now. So, but yes.
He's a heck of a shooter.
Oh, a wonderful guy. He has that extra gear to win.
Absolutely. No, there's no doubt about that. It's amazing how, what you just said, what Bill McGuire told you, when you get used to shooting well, you can shoot well. And that maybe explains why so many people that get to the top of the game stay there.
Mm-hmm. Not forever, but for extended periods of time. Correct. I agree 100%.
I like that. So, Curt, I'm thinking back to you and I started shooting together maybe in 2014, 13, somewhere in there. And the sport's evolved. I mean, when I shot my first nationals, I think it was 2008, there were like 800 people. And last year, weren't there like 23 or 2,400. The sport's changed, the sport's evolved. And with that, the targets have evolved with the capabilities of the machines and the quality of the shooters. What have you seen in the last 10 or 15 years in terms of transitions in our sport?
Wow, that's a really a broad question. But I think during the highest growth periods of the sport, I've noticed that people are having the most fun. And they're talking and they're excited and they can't wait till they go to the next event. And I think that whenever you can capture that fun factor and you stimulate it continually for all of the shooters, you have the greatest growth periods. And we've seen that.
We have seen that. But and that's no small feat, though, making it a fun experience when you have shooters of varying abilities, for example, and they're spending a lot of money, right? They're traveling, hotels, cars, airlines. You don't want to go to a tournament and shoot a 30 out of 100. So it's hard to have fun if you're not having fun breaking targets, right?
Yeah, and it is about targets, but it's about the facilities. It's about the friends and the people that you're looking forward to seeing, your comrades that you've seen for the last years. But, I'd say it was like 3 years ago. A very well-known owner of a club and has a lot of tournaments said his goal is to make the targets fun and enjoyable for all. And I thought, what a profound statement. I really like that. He's a very successful club.
No, I like that philosophy too. Remember, you and I shot a tournament with Jeff Starr in Colorado a few years ago. It was a regional, and the targets were, if you were to grade them, so to speak, on the softer side, but everybody had a blast. Everybody was breaking targets.
Well, looking back, it started with the scorers and the referees. They were just excited about being there and that we came to see their club. And then the food services were spectacular, the logistics, the infrastructure, it was all well done. And yeah, I remember having fun there. I think, like you said, people had fun.
Yeah. That's interesting because I lived in Colorado for many years and they did not have a shooting facility there. And it was just a phenomenal experience. And maybe that's the way to explain it.
Yes. Memorable, I would say.
Memorable. There you go. So, Curt, over the years, you've shot at all the facilities around the country. What are some of your favorites that you've experienced?
Well, I like Big Red Oak. I like the people there. I've shot many times at M&M. Okay, I like that. I've had some really good experiences in Florida at the three clubs there, shooting the Caribbean and South Florida and Jack Links. I always liked my home club of Minnesota Horse and Hunt Club. It's under new ownership now, and it's always fun to see it head in a new direction. Yeah, there's a lot of them, isn't there?
Yeah, really, and then there's more than there were 10 years ago.
Correct. Yep.
In Wisconsin, we have a regional club.
I have to jump in. I'm so sorry. I've had some really good tournaments at Game Unlimited, and Pete does a great job. And forgot that. I have to almost apologize to him.
Well, I was going to bring it up. One of the cool things about Pete's place, and I went there during COVID, there was nobody there, right? And I was in Wisconsin at the time. And I drove over to Game Unlimited, and they were getting ready for the regional, which was going to be in a month or 3 weeks. And I said, could I rent a cart or something? And Pete threw me his keys. He says, here, you use my Polaris. It's parked out front. That's kind of the kind of guy he is. It is, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. And that's what makes clubs have a personality. It starts at the top, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Speaking of Jack Links, I just had this flashback of a couple of years ago when you and I shot FITASC together, and you had a memorable round.
I did. Thank you.
That's incredible. All right. So we talked a little bit about some changes. What do you think about when you shoot a World FITASC and it's 4 days, or you shoot nationals and it can be 2 or 4 days? What are some of the challenges that go into these multi-day shoots that we don't experience when we just go show up and shoot 100 targets one day?
Well, weather, being that it's an outdoor sport, always plays, even on a day where there's you're shooting in the morning versus the afternoon, and maybe it's just the sun, but there's always elements there that you have to be prepared for. Somebody told me that I've shot a lot with, said the only time to worry and complain about anything is after you're done shooting. And if you dwell on something, whether it's the sun or the wind or the rain or whatever, while you're shooting, it's going to consume a lot of your energy that you'd normally be putting towards the targets. And so that was a hard one for me to learn, and I'm glad I somewhat accomplished that.
Those are words of wisdom, and I'm not so sure I've accomplished that over the years. I'm trying.
I think we always work on it.
I agree with you. I was just thinking, we mentioned Randy before. I remember one of the last times we shot together, we were down in Florida, and there was this pair from the right going up, true pair. And Randy said, shoot the orange one first. They were both orange.
Yep. Yeah, he liked to have fun when he was shooting. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, because if you're not having fun, like I mentioned earlier, I think everything becomes a little more rudimentary and maybe a little perfunctory. That isn't fun's a very important aspect, at least to me.
Oh, I totally agree. Speaking of fun, you retired, what, 10 years ago, give or take? 8 years ago?
2015, yes.
So it was 10 years ago. How'd that affect your shooting?
Well, I think we've talked about it, but for about 2 years there, it was like a different person shooting. I had a lot of fun. I shot a lot of good scores. I made the team like bing, bing, bing. Yeah, I think it makes a difference. Again, I think I worked hard in my career, and when it was over, I didn't have any regrets. And so sporting clays kind of fit right in.
Now, you and I have talked about it. I just wanted to get it out there on the podcast. Because people are always debating, should I retire? Should I not retire? I'm shooting a lot anyway. Pros and cons to everything.
Right. Well, speaking of retiring, a man told me, once you start thinking about it, you'll just keep thinking about it more and more until you do retire. And I think that is a fairly good point to remember.
I like that. And a corollary to that would be like you become a road warrior, retired on active duty.
Yeah. There you go.
So, Curt, a couple things. You and I've been talking about doing this podcast for a while now, and I've been bouncing some ideas off you, and you and I have come up with a few ideas for the podcast, and perhaps we'll even co-host a couple episodes. What do you think would be some cool topics we can talk about going forward?
Well, I think there are some individuals that have been in the sport for a long time that have really had some successes, and that would be fun to talk to some of those. I think one of the more interesting people right now is Nadim Nasser, who has just gone through a huge health issue and is coming back like gangbusters. I just talked to him a couple days ago. I think he'd be always, but now, he's always been fun to talk to, but right now it would be an extra little plus to be able to chat with him. Great competitor. I'll tell you a quick story. We were down at Caney Creek at a regional back in I suppose it was 13 or somewhere in there. And he came up to me and he poked me in the chest. We were out on the courses. And he said, I see you made the team. And I said, I did. And he said, well, I'm going to be coming after you. I'm going to get one of those this next year, because he was a year younger than I was. And so I said, well, I hope you do that. I'd love to have you on the team. And he did, but he's been a fierce competitor. I think he'd be fun to have on a podcast.
Oh, we'll get him on for sure. I've shot with Nadim. In fact, when we were all shooting, I think it was Worlds in England, maybe 5-6 years ago, wasn't there a Grand Prix
There was the English Grand Prix, correct.
Yeah. And Joey and I shot with Nadim. He was a blast to shoot with. And if I remember that, there was a small course, and it was raining shot on us the whole time we were shooting.
Correct. Yeah.
No, I would love to get Nadim and our buddy Brian Ducaney. We'd love to get Brian on the show. There's tons of people out there.
Yes, and I think that's where you get a good flavor of where the sport has come from, and where it's going, where it is today. Absolutely.
I think so. And then when you go to a tournament, if you think about it, you look at the veterans, those that are over 55 years old, and then the next group over 65. I mean, Mike Bulgus won nationals. He's a vet last year. Bill McGuire, Wendell Cherry. I mean, there's great shooters that are not 30 years old.
That have won when they've been veterans. Big tournaments. Absolutely. Mike Bulgus would be a wonderful guy to talk to. He is such a competitor, but he's a quiet competitor, and he's a gentleman. I really have always enjoyed visiting with him.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll get a bunch of great guests on, and Curt, it would be so much fun to co-host and pool our ideas and thoughts and questions, and just make it a lot of fun for the shooting community.
Well, let's do that.
I love it. All right. Well, Curt, thanks for making time on a Friday morning. How's your new year going?
Good so far.
Yep, me too. I love it. All right. Well, hey, to all of our listeners out there, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating, or perhaps leave a comment or two. And if you're watching on YouTube, by all means, become a subscriber. Looking forward with Shoot from the Hoop to bring leaders in the sporting community and the FITASC community, and some great stories that I think will be of interest to all of us. So cheers. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.